right, welcome to the RADER Security Podcast. It's been a minute, Tyler.
Been too long.
It has. It's been like 6 months. So today, the long-awaited podcast about physical security. So let's get right into it. I made a bunch of notes here. We're just going to kind of go through them. Tyler, what is physical security and how do we evaluate it?
Sure. So let's start with the definition of physical security. Those are the security measures that are designed to deny unauthorized access to your facilities, equipment, and resources, and, very important, and protect your people and property from damage.
Okay.
And I'm going to highlight that there because I think it's extremely important. Any security professional worth their salt will tell you that the number one asset worth protecting in your business are your people. And so this is where physical security, can play a bigger role in protecting your people.
Gotcha. And so with that, we start with, what we can control, which is our physical location.
Sure.
And so where do we start at that point?
Well, with all security controls, the first step is identification. And You're going to identify your assets, you're going to analyze your risks, and then design your controls based on those risks. Name of the game in security is risk mitigation, right?
Okay.
So to identify those assets, just visualize your physical environment and you kind of do an outside-in take on it. Let's start in the parking lot. We're out in the parking lot. What physical security controls can be used to help secure that area? Well, you want some good lighting. Make sure the employees can safely travel in and out the building after hours, and then maybe have some cameras in place. Cameras, good deterrent, and then a great response tool to assess anything that may or may not happen in that space. So you're making your way through the parking lot. You make it to the building entrance. Okay, yep. Now you're entering your workspace, and consider the controls that we put in place there. Again, we're talking about lighting and cameras. Now we have some access controls. Locks on the doors, and how the door is accessed, right?
Yeah. Are we using key cards? Are we using locks? Are we using anything at all, actually?
Sure, yeah. Do you have, are you a public-facing company that, has a wide open lobby for people to come in? What are the policies and procedures that revolve around that space there? And then does that change as you consider the other entrance points to your place of business? Speaking of visitor access, what are the sign-in procedures?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a kiosk? Do you have a log? Is there some way that you can track who's coming in and out of the business at any given time?
Yeah.
And just accounting,
that would be tough for retail.
Oh, for sure.
Because you can't have people, but for an office space that you're only getting a few customers a day or clients stopping by, deliveries.
Absolutely.
Why not have a sign-in procedure?
And like all things security, do it with respect to the business needs. In a retail space, your access controls, should enable your customers to flow in and out as they need to the spaces where they're allowed to be. And any, sensitive assets you may have for that business get put in a more restricted location.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Well, and we won't even talk about it, and we didn't talk about it ahead of time, but like employee areas versus customer areas. We talk about that here. Like, where do we let customers go? Where do we keep them away from?
Absolutely. And then, you're kind of narrowing it down here. You've made it through the entrance. Now you're in the business space. And where are those employee areas, those customer areas? And in those employee areas, what are the additional controls that are put in place? Are there desks with desktops and workstations there? Is there some sort of privacy consideration on the screen? A screen protector that has limited angles for viewing?
Yeah.
Are you considering visibility, over the shoulder, through windows? All things to take into account when you're assessing the physical security of that location.
Putting your computer in front of a mirror. But so it's talking about inside the space, right? So now we're inside the building. There's other things we need to consider too, like cameras.
Yep.
In almost any
cameras
location.
And lighting, absolutely.
Yeah, cameras, lighting.
But inside this space, what about chemical and smoke detectors? Again, protecting from potential incidents that could harm your people or your property there.
Makes sense.
Fire suppressant systems in the event that a fire does break out. Some sort of alarm system should there be unauthorized access after hours.
Yep.
Just more and more controls to consider as you weed your way down.
Power backup.
Absolutely. Talking about just the physical security controls, what happens when you lose power to those? Access controls on the doors.
Oh yeah, because your access control is being powered by your utility power, and 100%. If that goes out, your access control and your cameras could go out.
Do those have a battery backup? Do they fail open? Do they fail closed? Do they need to fail closed or open in certain spaces? Again, just a lot to consider as you weed your way down through your physical environment.
And that brings up a good point. You need to consider redundancies in the most important areas that you're adding security.
Absolutely. What the safety of the people. Should there be a security incident? Are they able to safely evacuate? Is there, a predetermined space for them to go? All part of these considerations.
Gotcha. All right. So moving on, before we get back to like the computer and the data digital world, going back to analog, like I still use paper.
For sure.
You have a piece of paper?
Absolutely.
So what do I do with this paper and how concerned do I need to be about this?
Yeah, as much as we've digitized things, we can't get away from paper just yet. Plenty of times there will be sensitive information on paper documents, and you have to consider, do these things need to be kept? If they do, is there a secure place to put them? You have closets, cabinets, safes, locking drawers on desks, and then are the employees, appropriately putting these papers where they belong. Routine visual inspections of workspaces, make sure there's no secure documentation left out in the open. Well-defined policies lead to well-defined procedures, lead to well-defined controls, and then as is always of great import, are your employees trained in all these policies and security controls?
So I'm guilty of, I've never taken the key out of my little locked drawer next to my desk. It's still sitting right in there.
And I hope that there's nothing sensitive inside of it, right?
There's some USB cables and a set of headphones. So it's probably okay.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Like we just because we have the thing, now we have to have a policy to use it.
Absolutely. And then you dispose of it. Does your business have a shredding service? So, just such a common way to securely dispose of sensitive information.
Yep. I love our shredding service.
Absolutely.
I use it for my personal stuff too. My mail, junk mail, go in there. All right. Moving into the digital world, mobile devices, many people have laptops. Everybody has a phone. A lot of people have tablets. What do we do in terms of physical security in that realm?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, more than ever today, you're walking around with a lot of sensitive information on something that can travel with you, and just as easily, you travel without it. If it walks away or gets taken, we want to make sure that's accounted for. So a couple things to consider, just right up front. How accessible is it? Are those devices protected with a password or a PIN or something to secure the sign into that device? If the hard drive gets ripped out, can the data be easily removed? Well, not so easily if it's encrypted, and so that's a common protection put in place. Pretty standard requirement for cyber insurance these days, encrypting your mobile data.
Yeah.
There's USB drives, USB ports. Consider restrictions there. What's accessible? Are you allowing only certain USB devices to be plugged in?
That's right, and that can be disabled from like
a mobile device management policy or any sort of device management, group policy, whatever it may be. Really, really common and unsurprisingly effective attack is just drop a couple of USB drives in a parking lot, and you can probably count on one of them being plugged in somewhere by someone who's just curious.
I think everybody has a story where like their dad or their grandpa, I found this in the parking lot. Can you plug it in and see what's inside of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
No. And I think we all too, when you said, like we carry the phone with us, I think many of us have had that family member where the common phrase is, do you know where my phone is?
Yeah, 100%.
So kind of being mindful of where you're leaving it,
Oh, for sure. And that comes back down to training and awareness, and the user so often is your weakest link, and to make them as robust as possible.
Yep.
And then back them up with those digital controls, if you will, or security controls to assist them. Everyone can make a mistake, and or not even a mistake, but a device can be taken with the best intentions.
Yep.
And if that device were to be lost, a policy for remote wiping those devices, great tool to use for something that gets taken despite your best efforts.
Well, I was going to say so many of these features, right? Whether it's drive encryption or password protection or remote wiping, they're free. Like Find My iPhone comes with the phone.
Yes.
There's no reason not to enable that and start using it as a security precaution.
Absolutely. And it really speaks to just how prevalent these concerns have become when we see these, major companies that are so ubiquitous in our lives have these considerations in place for you already, and you appreciate seeing it being taken that seriously.
Yeah. So my worry sometimes is companies make it so easy for us that we forget about security.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's not in our mind anymore. So, and going back to some of the earlier podcasts, you had talked about doing things to always make sure people are thinking about security.
100%.
Because as you automate all of that stuff, it's less in our mind and we're not thinking about it as much. And that's when we click on something we shouldn't have.
It's true. And that's why even despite, so many robust security controls being put in place on behalf of companies or in support of companies, user training is just as or even more prolific than it's ever been. Yep. We here have our monthly training that we're required to do first Wednesday of every month.
Yep.
And something that common, just a small blip, 5 minutes a month can keep it front of mind. We're always discussing it. It's one of our primary topics of conversation and our company meetings, and it should be for really any business. It's that paramount. It's that important to, like I said, keep front of mind at all times.
Certainly. That's it for my notes there, Tyler. Any closing thoughts on any of this?
Sure. As this topic came up, physical security, it's such a robust topic in and of itself, but so often you consider a cybersecurity program and you instantly jump to, okay, what are the software solutions? What are the device management policies that go in place? Everything on the digital side and the physical side. I mean, we live in a physical world.
Yeah.
We just experience so much of it through a digital interface, but there's so much to account for on the physical side. Very, very important to keep that in mind when you're designing your holistic security program.
Awesome. That's good stuff right there. Cool. Tyler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
If anybody has any questions, just hop over to our website, RADERsolutions.com. There's a web form there. Send it. It'll probably come to me, and then we will address it. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.